Chosen one, patience is one of the hardest lessons a person can learn, especially when you believe God has placed something meaningful in your heart. There are moments in life when you feel as if time is standing still while everyone else seems to be moving forward. You watch opportunities appear for other people. You see doors opening in places where you expected your own breakthrough to happen. And you begin to quietly wonder if you missed something, or if perhaps you misunderstood the promise God placed in your spirit. The truth is that patience does not mean waiting forever without purpose, and it certainly does not mean that God has forgotten about you. Patience means trusting that God's timing operates on a level far beyond human clocks and human expectations. What feels delayed to you is often simply part of a timeline that God has already arranged with precision and care. Many people struggle with patience because the waiting season rarely comes with clear explanations. You pray, you hope, you work toward your goals, and yet there are long stretches where nothing seems to change. During those moments, the mind starts searching for answers, and the pressure of uncertainty begins to grow. People around you may offer advice that encourages you to rush, compromise, or settle for something smaller than what you originally believed God promised. The world teaches that speed equals success, and that the faster something happens, the more valuable it must be. But God does not operate under the pressure of human urgency. God works according to purpose, alignment, and divine timing. When God delays something, it is never random and never careless. Every season of waiting contains preparation, protection, or redirection that you may not fully understand in the moment. Patience is often misunderstood as passivity, as if waiting means doing nothing and simply hoping things will eventually improve. In reality, patience is an active form of trust.
It is the decision to keep walking forward with faith, even when the destination is not yet visible. It is the ability to hold onto the promise while allowing God the freedom to fulfill it in the exact moment that serves the greater plan. This kind of patience requires strength, because it asks you to believe in something that has not yet appeared. It asks you to stay committed to a path even when there are days when doubt tries to whisper that maybe it will never happen. Yet the story of faith throughout history shows that God rarely moves according to human impatience. Even Jesus did not rush the mission that had been prepared for him. His life unfolded step by step under the guidance of the Father's timing. There were years of quiet preparation before the world ever saw the public ministry that would change history. If the Son of God himself trusted the timing of the Father without forcing the process, then the same trust is required for anyone walking a path that God has designed. Many chosen ones reach a point where the waiting season begins to feel personal, as if the delay is somehow a reflection of their worth or their readiness. But God does not measure readiness the way humans do. God sees the deeper layers of character, resilience, and purpose that are still forming beneath the surface. What feels like silence may actually be the space where something far more significant is being built. The promises of God are not fragile ideas that disappear with time. They are commitments that unfold when the right moment arrives. Sometimes that moment requires months or even years of growth that are invisible to the outside world. Patience becomes the bridge between the promise and the fulfillment. It holds you steady when emotions fluctuate, and when circumstances attempt to convince you that the waiting is pointless. In truth, patience is not about counting days until something happens. It is about learning to trust that God is actively working in ways that you cannot yet see. Every step you take in faith, every moment you resist the urge to give up, and every time you choose trust instead of frustration, strengthens the foundation for what is coming. God is never late, even when the calendar suggests otherwise. The timing of heaven is precise in ways the human mind cannot fully grasp. What looks like a delay may actually be the careful positioning of events, people, and opportunities that must come together before the next chapter begins. When you understand this, patience stops feeling like punishment and begins to feel like preparation. It becomes the quiet confidence that God knows exactly what He is doing. In this journey, patience is not about losing time. It is about allowing God to shape time itself around His purpose for your life. And as you continue forward with trust instead of anxiety, you begin to realize that the waiting season is not empty after all. It is a sacred space where faith grows stronger, character becomes deeper, and the path ahead slowly aligns with the plan that God has been arranging all along. In this video, we will explore what patience truly means, why it is often tested in the lives of those who are called for something greater, and how you can learn to wait with purpose and confidence, while God is quietly preparing the moment when everything begins to move. Chosen one. One of the most difficult parts of trusting God's timing is the feeling that life is moving slower than it should. There are seasons when progress appears invisible, when prayers seem to echo back in silence, and when the future you believed God showed you still feels far away. In those moments, it is easy to interpret the waiting as delay or even as denial. Yet what many people fail to realize is that God often slows the timeline of your life for reasons that are rooted in wisdom, protection, and preparation. What feels slow from your perspective may actually be the careful pacing of a plan that must unfold in the right order. When God prepares something meaningful for your life, He does not simply drop it into your hands without first shaping the environment around you. Timing in God's plan is never random. Every stage of the journey is connected to another stage that must come before it. Often, the first reason God's timing feels slow is because He is protecting you from stepping into something before you are ready to carry it. Success, opportunity, influence, or responsibility can become overwhelming when they arrive too early. Many people believe they are ready for the next level simply because they desire it. But God sees the unseen pressures that come with every blessing. Exposure without preparation can invite criticism, jealousy, or spiritual attack that a person is not yet strong enough to handle. What appears to be a delay may actually be God shielding you from circumstances that would have damaged your confidence, your calling, or your peace. There are doors that God intentionally keeps closed for a season, not because He does not want you to walk through them, but because the timing is not yet aligned with your growth. The protection of God often works quietly and invisibly, preventing situations you never even knew existed. Many chosen ones later look back and realize that the things they once begged God for would have been overwhelming if they had received them too soon. Protection is one of the hidden mercies of God's timing. The second reason God's timing can feel slow is preparation. Patience is rarely comfortable because it forces you to grow in ways that quick success never would. During the waiting season, God is often strengthening qualities that will become essential for the next chapter of your life. Character, discipline, emotional maturity, humility, and resilience are not built overnight. They are developed through experiences that require endurance and faith. When God prepares you for something greater, He is not only preparing the opportunity, He is also preparing the person who will carry that opportunity. The process shapes your thinking, your priorities, and your understanding of purpose. Without that shaping, the very blessing you prayed for might become something you cannot sustain. Many people imagine that God is wasting time when nothing visible is happening, but God never wastes time. Every season contains lessons that quietly strengthen the foundation of your life. Even the moments that feel ordinary or repetitive may be part of a deeper preparation that only becomes clear later. What you are learning now may be exactly what allows you to succeed when the door finally opens. God understands the future that you cannot yet see, and He knows exactly which experiences must come before others. Preparation is the unseen work that ensures you are ready, not only to receive the blessing, but to steward it wisely once it arrives. The third reason God's timing can feel slow is alignment. Life is not only about your personal journey, it is also about the connections, relationships, opportunities, and circumstances that must intersect with your path at the right moment. God is constantly orchestrating details that are beyond your awareness. The right people must enter your life at the right time. The right opportunities must appear when your skills and mindset are prepared to use them well. Even challenges and obstacles can play a role in guiding you toward the exact environment where your purpose will unfold. Alignment requires precision, and that precision often takes time. From your perspective, it may seem as if nothing is happening, but in reality, God is arranging pieces across many different areas of life, so that when the moment arrives, everything fits together with clarity.
This is why forcing your own timeline can sometimes lead to frustration or confusion. When people rush ahead without waiting for alignment, they may enter situations that look promising at first, but eventually create unnecessary struggle. God's timing ensures that when something finally happens, it is supported by the right conditions. The people who are meant to help you will be present. The resources you need will become available. The opportunity will arrive when you have both the readiness and the wisdom to recognize it. Alignment is the quiet orchestration of God's plan, bringing together elements that you could never organize on your own. Understanding these three realities, protection, preparation, and alignment, changes the way you see the waiting season. Instead of interpreting it as lost time, you begin to see it as purposeful time. God is not ignoring your prayers, and He is not delaying your future out of indifference. He is shaping a moment that will unfold exactly when it is meant to. The waiting may stretch your patience, but it is also strengthening your trust. As you continue forward, the question becomes not whether the promise will happen, but how you choose to respond during the season before it arrives. Because the waiting season is not empty, it is a space where faith grows deeper and where your relationship with God becomes stronger. And that leads to the next part of this journey, where patience becomes more than endurance and begins to transform into a powerful way of living while you trust God's perfect timing. Chosen one. Once you begin to understand that God's timing is not random but intentional, the next question naturally arises. How do you actually live during the waiting season without becoming discouraged or exhausted? Patience is not simply something you are told to have. It is something that must be developed through a deeper relationship with God and a clearer understanding of how faith works in real life.
Many people believe patience means sitting still and hoping things eventually change. But true patience is much more active than that. It is the steady decision to trust God, even when circumstances do not yet match the promise placed in your heart. Trust begins with recognizing who God truly is. God is not careless with your life, and He is not indifferent to your hopes or your prayers. When God places a calling, a dream, or a purpose inside you, it is not an accident or a passing idea. It is a seed of direction that He intends to develop through time. But trust requires letting go of the illusion that you must control every detail of the journey. Human nature often wants guarantees before taking the next step. We want to see the full path, understand every stage, and know exactly when the outcome will appear. God rarely works that way. Instead, He invites you into a walk of faith, where each step reveals only what you need for that moment. Growing in patience means learning to believe that God is working behind the scenes, even when you cannot yet see visible results. It means accepting that silence does not equal absence, and that delay does not equal rejection. The promise of God does not disappear simply because it takes time to unfold. What you experience as waiting is often the space where unseen progress is quietly taking place. Trust transforms patience from frustration into confidence.
It allows you to move forward with the understanding that God's delay is never a denial of His promise, but rather a strategic part of the process. Alongside trust comes the ability to rest in God's process. Rest does not mean inactivity or abandoning your responsibilities. Instead, it means releasing the constant anxiety that comes from trying to force life to move faster than it is meant to. Many people carry unnecessary stress because they believe that if they stop worrying, everything will fall apart. But true rest is the recognition that God remains in control even when you pause. When you rest in God's timing, you stop measuring your life against artificial deadlines created by society or by comparison with others. You begin to focus on the present moment and the steps God is guiding you to take right now. Rest allows your mind and spirit to settle into a place of peace instead of constant pressure. This peace is not based on everything being perfect, but on the understanding that God's plan is unfolding exactly as it should. When patience is rooted in rest, waiting no longer feels like wasted time. Instead, it becomes a period where you continue growing, learning, and strengthening your faith, while trusting that the outcome will appear when the time is right. The third element of growing in patience is obedience. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It means continuing to follow God's direction, even when the final destination is not yet visible. Obedience keeps your life moving forward, or the larger plan unfolds. Sometimes, God asks you to take small steps that seem unrelated to the bigger promise you are expecting. These steps may involve developing a skill, helping someone else, changing a habit, or making a decision that aligns your life more closely with your values and your faith. At the time, these actions may appear ordinary or insignificant, but they are often the very things that prepare the foundation for what is coming next. Patience is strengthened every time you choose obedience over frustration. When you remain faithful in small responsibilities, you demonstrate that your trust in God is not dependent on immediate results. Many people abandon their path because they assume that if something has not happened quickly, it must not be meant for them. But patience requires a different perspective. It asks you to stay committed even when progress is gradual and when recognition is absent.
God often watches how a person handles the quiet seasons before revealing the larger opportunities that follow. Obedience during the waiting period keeps your heart aligned with God's purpose and ensures that when the moment finally arrives, you are ready to step into it without hesitation. Trust, rest, and obedience work together to transform patience into a powerful way of living. Trust keeps your faith strong when circumstances are uncertain. Rest protects your peace while the process unfolds. Obedience ensures that your actions remain aligned with God's guidance, even when the future is not yet clear. Together, they create a mindset that allows you to move through the waiting season with confidence rather than fear. You begin to understand that patience is not a passive experience, but a journey of growth where every day contributes to the person you are becoming. The waiting season may still challenge you at times, but it no longer defines your outlook. Instead of asking why things are taking so long, you begin to ask what God might be building within you during this time. And as you continue walking forward with trust, rest, and obedience, you gradually realize that patience is not just about reaching a destination. It is about becoming the kind of person who is ready for the purpose God has prepared. Yet even with this understanding, there will still be moments when patience is tested. Doubt may appear, comparison may creep in, and the temptation to settle for less than God's best can quietly grow. Those challenges are part of the journey as well, and learning to face them is the next step in understanding how patience truly shapes your faith and your future. Chosen one, even when you understand that God's timing is intentional and that patience is part of the process, the waiting season will still test your faith in ways that feel deeply personal. Patience is not proven when everything is comfortable. It is proven when uncertainty tries to convince you to give up. Every person walking a path designed by God eventually encounters moments where waiting begins to feel heavy.
These moments are not signs that you are failing or that God has forgotten you. They are part of the spiritual testing that strengthens your faith and clarifies your commitment to the purpose placed in your life. One of the first tests that appears during the waiting season is doubt. Doubt often arrives quietly, not as a dramatic crisis, but as a subtle question that repeats itself in the background of your thoughts. You may begin asking yourself whether you misunderstood God's direction, or whether the promise you believed in will ever truly happen. The longer the waiting lasts, the easier it becomes for fear to attach itself to those questions. Human nature tends to interpret delays as mistakes or missed opportunities, and when progress is not immediately visible, doubt begins to build its case. Yet doubt is not the same as truth. Doubt is simply a temporary emotion created by uncertainty. Faith, on the other hand, is the deeper conviction that God remains faithful even when circumstances appear unclear. When doubt tries to convince you that nothing is happening, it helps to remember the ways God has already worked in your life. Every answered prayer, every unexpected opportunity, and every moment of guidance you have experienced before becomes evidence that God has never abandoned your journey. Faith grows stronger when you choose to remember God's past faithfulness instead of allowing doubt to rewrite the story. Doubt may visit your mind, but it does not have to control your belief. Another powerful test during the waiting season is comparison. In a world where people constantly display their progress, achievements, and milestones, it becomes easy to measure your own timeline against the timelines of others. You may see people around you reaching goals that you hope to achieve yourself, and the mind begins to wonder why their path appears to move faster. Comparison creates the illusion that life should unfold according to the same schedule for everyone. But God never designs journeys that way. Each person carries a unique purpose, and that purpose requires its own sequence of preparation, experiences, and timing. When you compare your journey with someone else's, you are comparing two completely different stories that were never meant to be identical. Comparison distracts you from recognizing the specific work God is doing in your own life. Instead of focusing on your growth and your direction, your attention becomes divided by the progress of others. This distraction slowly drains gratitude and replaces it with frustration. The truth is that God's path for you cannot be measured by someone else's timeline. Their breakthrough does not delay yours, and your waiting season does not mean you are behind. The timing of God operates according to purpose, not competition. When you release comparison, you regain the ability to see your journey with clarity and appreciation. You begin to recognize that your path is unfolding exactly as it needs to. The third test of patience is perhaps the most dangerous: the temptation to settle. Waiting can become uncomfortable enough that even strong believers begin considering options that are merely good enough, rather than aligned with God's best. When a door opens that seems easier, faster, or more certain than the promise you have been waiting for, it can feel like a solution to the frustration of delay. But not every opportunity that appears is meant to be accepted. Some opportunities exist only to test whether you are willing to remain faithful to God's timing, instead of rushing ahead on your own. Settling often happens when people lose confidence that something greater is still possible. They begin to believe that the safest choice is to accept whatever is available, even if it does not fully match the vision God placed in their heart. Yet settling too soon can lead to situations that eventually feel restrictive or misaligned with your deeper calling. Patience protects you from these compromises. It gives you the strength to wait for what truly belongs in your life, rather than grasping at temporary solutions that only relieve discomfort for a short time. God's best often requires endurance, because it is designed to fulfill a greater purpose than immediate convenience. When you remain patient, you allow God the space to bring opportunities that align not only with your desires, but also with your calling. These three tests, doubt, comparison,
and the temptation to settle are common experiences for anyone walking through a season of waiting. They do not appear because your faith is weak. They appear because patience itself must be refined through challenge. Every time you choose trust instead of doubt, gratitude instead of comparison, and faithfulness instead of settling, your patience becomes stronger. You begin to develop a deeper confidence that God's timing is not only real, but worth waiting for. The waiting season may stretch your endurance, but it also strengthens your character and your relationship with God. Over time, you begin to realize that these tests are not obstacles meant to stop you. They are opportunities to prove that your trust in God is stronger than the pressure to rush the process. And as you continue forward through these tests, something remarkable begins to happen. The waiting season that once felt uncertain starts to reveal its purpose. You begin to sense that the moment of breakthrough may be closer than you once believed. Because in many journeys, the greatest blessings appear just after patience has been tested the most. This is where the story of waiting begins to shift from endurance to fulfillment, as God's perfect timing slowly unfolds in ways that could only happen after the season of patience had done its work. Chosen one. After seasons of waiting, trusting, and enduring the quiet tests of patience, there eventually comes a moment when the purpose behind God's timing begins to reveal itself. Breakthrough rarely arrives in the way people expect. It does not always come with dramatic announcements or sudden recognition. Often, it appears quietly at first, like a door that opens after years of preparation you did not fully understand while you were walking through it. The waiting season that once felt slow or uncertain suddenly begins to make sense, because you can finally see how the pieces were being arranged all along. What once looked like delay reveals itself as careful alignment. The relationships that entered your life at just the right time, the lessons you learned through challenges, the strength that developed during moments when you thought nothing was happening, each part of the journey becomes evidence that God was guiding your path with intention. Breakthrough is rarely the result of a single moment. Instead, it is the result of many unseen moments where faith continued even when answers had not yet appeared. Patience creates the foundation that allows breakthrough to be sustained when it finally arrives. One of the most remarkable truths about God's timing is that the greatest blessings often appear right after patience has been tested the most. There is a point in many journeys where you have done everything you know to do. You have prayed, trusted, continued moving forward, and remained faithful even when the outcome was unclear. It is often in that exact space, where your faith is steady, but your expectations are no longer desperate, that God begins to move in visible ways. Breakthrough does not only change circumstances, it changes perspective.
When the promise finally begins to unfold, you realize that you are not simply waiting for something to happen. You are becoming the person capable of carrying what God was preparing for you. The timing was never about making you wait unnecessarily. It was about ensuring that when the blessing arrived, it would align with the maturity, strength, and clarity that had developed within you during the process. God's rewards are rarely limited to the surface level of what you originally expected. Often, the blessing that arrives carries deeper meaning than the dream you first imagined. What God gives is not simply a solution to a temporary desire. It is something designed to serve a greater purpose in your life and in the lives of others. The breakthrough may come in the form of a new opportunity, a restored relationship, a clearer sense of direction, or a door opening in a place you never predicted. But the true reward is not only the outcome itself. The deeper reward is the alignment that comes with it. When God moves at the right time, the circumstances surrounding that moment begin to support the purpose He has designed. The right people are present. The opportunities connect naturally. The path ahead feels clearer because the preparation has already taken place. This alignment is something that cannot be forced by human effort alone.
It is the result of God's orchestration working quietly across time. Another important realization appears once the waiting season ends. God's timing was never only about you. The blessings God prepares often carry influence beyond what you initially imagined. Your patience may have allowed someone else to enter your life at the exact moment they needed encouragement or support. Your growth during the waiting season may position you to lead, guide, or inspire others who will one day face similar challenges. When God fulfills a promise, it is often connected to a larger story that includes people you have not even met yet.
What you receive is not simply for personal comfort. It is part of a purpose that extends outward. This is why God's timing must be trusted, even when it does not match human expectations. The plan of God operates on a scale that includes many lives, many moments, and many outcomes that are impossible to predict in advance. Looking back on the journey of patience, you begin to understand that nothing was wasted. Every quiet day, every moment of doubt that you overcame, every decision to keep trusting instead of giving up, contributed to the breakthrough that eventually appeared. Patience did not steal time from your life. It shaped your life into something stronger and more meaningful. The waiting season was not empty space. It was sacred preparation, where God refined your faith and strengthened your character, so that the future He planned for you could be carried with wisdom and confidence. And this realization leads to a deeper declaration that becomes the foundation for the next chapter of your life. You learn to trust God's timing, even when the full picture is not visible. You choose faith over fear when uncertainty appears again. You choose rest over anxiety, because you now understand that God continues working even when you cannot see the details. And you choose obedience over impatience, knowing that every step taken with trust moves you closer to the purpose God has prepared. If this message resonates with your journey, and you are choosing to trust God's timing in your own life, take a moment to affirm that decision. Comment, "I trust," as a declaration that you are willing to wait for what God is preparing, instead of rushing towards something smaller. And if you want to continue growing in faith, patience, and understanding the deeper purpose behind life's waiting seasons, subscribe so you never miss future messages designed to strengthen those who are walking the path of purpose.